today is a momentous day for us because we have been putting together these efforts to bring about a voice for non-profit organizations for the last 2.5 years. It was an initiative that had started with a number of NPOs that really wanted to come together and look at how they can best organize themselves to be the voice, to be coordinated, to give rise to opportunities for collaboration. So in 2016 there was a conference similar to this. It was called the Summit for Education NGOs. They've come together and they put, had the blessings of the Minister of Basic Education, and they then formed a steering committee. This steering committee has been driving this process until about 9 months ago when they appointed me to project manage the sort of building the scope of NASCEE, and this is what we have today. The association, we've developed the logo, the branding, and we've actually consulted quite widely in all the provinces. So we're quite excited about the real inaugural meeting of all the role players and stakeholders in the industry.
So what they've done, the steering committee have brought us to a point where later today we will have our first AGM and we will adopt a constitution and we will elect the first board of directors. This moment demands, however, leadership, and it demands vision, and it demands innovation.
Another phenomenon of South Africa is that the people who are providers of public services, including education, don't have their own children in schools, right? Nurses and others in healthcare don't go to those hospitals in public healthcare. Ministers and politicians who pass laws don't actually attend those hospitals and schools. In the Labour Party in England, one of the most seminal sins a Labour politician would do is to utilize private services instead of the public services. I have to tell you that the day politicians especially use the same services that they legislate for and pass budgets for, the day they'll get better. Because they'll keep an eye on how the resources are used, what kind of customer services, what services are provided, the quality of service, and they will do something about it.
It is clear that NGOs globally have greater capability to test new things, to try new outrageous ideas, make mistakes, have successes, learn from the mistakes and so on, and have a much better capability to do that than government itself can.
The opening plenary this morning was quite insightful in that it located the discussion around collaborative education and how much of a stride we've made since 1994 in terms of addressing the inequalities in the education system, in terms of ensuring that from a quality point of view that we invest in education and we invest in the young people so that we unlock their human potential. I think the importance of resilient leadership was another important point that was stressed throughout the opening session this morning. I think ultimately the location of the discussion itself and the emphasis on resilient leadership, collaborative partnerships in terms of how we make systemic changes to the education system was well located this morning.
So very central to the whole idea of collaboration, it's an African concept of thema. Very old ways in which villages used to come together and address common challenges. So common good in a context of a village.
We may be good at innovating, and that's a great virtue. Don't ever chuck it away. But you've got to be able to take it to scale. And the way you take it to scale is through coalitions, through partnerships, through linking up with other people who can take you to the scale that you need.
So enabling the work to take place in ways that don't flout the regulations of the country, but drawing on the resources that are available in a number of spaces is, I think, a useful way to think about these multi-sectoral collaborations and how we can enable them.
What kind of partnerships are working? I think the best partnerships for us is the one that we co-create to take Gale. They're long-term. A lot of the work that my predecessors, both Godwin and Nick Taylor before that, there's some work that Nick started 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that we're still involved in. Because they were co-created and they addressed a need in the country. It wasn't a tender that we responded to or something like that. We have to respond to tenders because we have to be sustainable.
It can give us a space in which we can share what we're currently doing. There's no such space at the moment, where we can engage with each other on a regular basis about the kinds of issues that we see, the sorts of ways that we are overcoming them, where we can collect the evidence that we do have, so that we know that our practices are grounded. I think we've also got to try and identify what the different roles are of different sorts of NGOs, and so I did like some of the distinctions that were made this morning. So Kuminaidu was talking about the micro, the meso and the macro. Some organizations span all of those. Some organizations are simply service organizations, others are innovating, others are trying to pilot an innovation and have proof of concept. And others are they are watchdogs. We are all equally important in this canvas, and I think we need to understand each other and understand how we can complement each other as best we can.
A voluntary association, which is the sort of legal entity that we're looking at setting up here today, if we all agree, is established by agreement between its founding participants and members. So a constitution in law is nothing more than a contract. It's a contract between those who associate together, and it's the governing rules of that contract.
We've actually just witnessed the exciting birth of NASCEE, and it was an amazing experience to be part of. A room of 150 people, non-profit organization representing a range of interests from across the country, debating the Constitution and electing a board. The non-profit sector needs a voice, and it's important to have an association that represents our interests. For me, the association's going to promote collaboration and learning and dialogue, and I just think it's so important for us to learn from each other.
So during the nominations for the NASCEE board members, I witnessed democracy at its best. So everyone within the conference is contributing towards the nomination, as well as deliberating as to who to vote for as the next board members. And it was the most smooth process I've ever witnessed. At the same time, we also sat down amending the constitution as well, and just make sure that everyone who's in the conference or part of the association is actually understands what the Constitution is all about.
What I got to experience was what seemed like a bit of an executive board meeting, or AGM rather. And I think it was a well-run process and very inclusive, very much about everyone's voice being heard, which I really appreciated. What I also appreciated is a sense of we don't have to know everything. We don't have to know how everything has to work, and that we can figure it out on the spot. And then in one room, when we are working together, there's bound to be someone else that knows a way or that can suggest a way. So I appreciated the sense of we don't have to be perfect.
The names are as follows: Mr. James Kiwi, Miss Gail Campbell, Mr. Sylvester Moyepia, Sibongile Kumalo, Lungile Zakwe, Veronique Jenica, Vuyiswa Nkotsa, John Gilmore, Giles Gillette, and Estelle Nell.